not even look at those lyrics. Unbelievable. See what happens when you actually tell yourself, okay, I'm going to have what I need, there's the lyrics, everything's going to be fine, no problem, that it all works out, doesn't it? It's when we sit there and we're like, oh, is this going to work out? Is this going to be good? Is this going to be bad? That's when it gets crazy. We just have to know right from the beginning, the lyrics will always be right there. Or there. Right? And that's the truth. So, I've got an itching on the tips of my fingers. I've got a boiling in the back of my brain. I've got a hunger burning inside me, cannot be denied. Who's with me on that? How many of you have an itching on the tip of your fingers? What are the rest of you doing? How many of you have a burning inside of you? How many of you have passion that's just waiting to be unleashed? How many of you just feel like you just don't even want to sit in that chair right now? I guarantee you that's where you're going to be at the end of this. I mean, here's the thing. I have that. When I went over these lyrics this morning, I've got an itching in the tip of my fingers. I do. I have this feeling that there's something in me that hasn't even begun to know and understand what it is I am capable of. There's something in me that knows that I am bigger than anything that could ever possibly come into my orbit. And that I'm still somehow playing it small because I haven't understood the understanding, the idea of big, what big really means. And it's not doing something big, it's being a bigger expression of who I know myself to be. And that's what's really going on. I feel it in me. I feel it in people around me. I feel it in you. I feel it in this center. I feel it in this movement. I feel it in the New Thought movement. I feel it in religions that don't even know that this is what we're all doing the same. I just feel it. So, I've got a feeling that the Father who made us, when he was kindling a pulse in my veins, he left a tiny spark of that fire smoldering inside. Now, whether or not you are of the ilk that there is a Father who made you, something brought you forth, yes? So I don't care that when we hear this idea of, and I want to invite you today, if any of you here are that person that hears Christian sayings or the Father or God, hears any of that stuff and backs off, you know what? Get rid of that. Because there is so much to glean from so many religions. And when we say no because of some stupid thing like, as soon as they say the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, I'm out of there. And I know, I was that man. Who said it? Yeah, I know. I was that person. I used to teach like that, but I don't anymore. So, there's something in us that gave birth to us. There's something in us that brought us forward. There's something in me that constantly brings forth ideas. Isn't there something in you that constantly brings forth the creative essence? Yes? How many people here are creative? Is there anybody here who thinks they're not creative? Because let me tell you, you are creative. Your mind is always creating because you're always thinking, aren't you? If you're always thinking, you're always creating. So, I got a feeling that the Father who made us, when he was kindling a pulse in my veins, he left a tiny spark of that fire smoldering inside. So, can you feel, how many of you absolutely can positively, viscerally feel that spark? I invite you today to get in touch with that spark. Really, to really think about, what is that spark in me? What is that spark? What is it and where is it taking me, right? So, the spark of creation is flickering within me. The spark of creation is blazing in my blood. A bit of the fire that lit up the stars and breathed life into the mud. The first inspiration. The spark of creation. Today's talk title is, Where Does It All Come From? Where does it all come from? The first inspiration. There was the first. I'll just end with that. There was the first. That first idea, that first creative energy, that first love, that first passion, that first life force. And it gave way to every individual one that's in this room today. So you are not separate from that. You could never possibly be separate from that. But you know what you can be? You can be in denial. You can think somehow that you're separate from that. You can even prove somehow that you're separate from that. How many of you have things that you can look at in the past and prove that you are separate from the creative process? Really, there's things that we can look at and say, unbelievable that I could create that in my life. Unbelievable that not me, of course, but you. You have things in your life I know you wish you hadn't done. Oh, and then there are some things you wish you hadn't done and you wish you would not do them again. So, where does it all come from? Well, here's the deal, folks, today. We need to know where it comes from so that we can go there and get it. I liked it. We need to know where it all comes from so that we know how to tap into it. I think we forget who we are so much that we don't even know that what it is we're looking for, we already are. And I know we hear that 1,000 times. It's a great bumper sticker. You know, what you're looking for is who you are. Oh, yeah, I know that. But let me go look over here. I mean, that's, I think, what we do. So this song today really taps me into this understanding. Where does it all come from? Where does everything in your life come from? Where is everything in your life going to come from? Where do you think your success is going to come from? Where do you think your prosperity is going to come from? Where do you think your creativity is going to come from? I know that we are still giving ourselves many mixed messages. I know that we know where our good comes from. And I also know that we sometimes think it comes from this, or it comes from this person, or this job. I know people that are stuck in lack and limitation are stuck there because they somehow think that what they need is out here. And that they somehow think that what they need, they don't have. But if you really knew who you were, you could not possibly think that what you need, you don't have. You just can't. And if you would just understand, if we would all just understand that it is merely a turning the mind away from what we think is the truth to the absolute truth, everything unfolds, everything unleashes, everything relaxes. And then suddenly, I do know who I am. I am the spark of creation. We have to stop waiting for things to show up. And we have to be willing to actually go where it is and get it. Ernest Holmes says that our job is to accept the opulence of the universe. But in order to accept it, he says, we must what? We must be willing to what? Believe it? That's, yes. Take it, he says. It's one of my favorite things he says. In order for you to receive the opulence of the universe, you have to be willing to take it. Take it. Those are powerful words. Take it. Now, I think in order for you to take it, you better know where it is. So you can go take it. Yes? How are you going to take it if you don't know where it is? Have you ever tried to go get something and not remember where you put it? If I lose one more pair of glasses, seriously, I want to go get something and I think it's here, it's not here. Oh no, where is it? Where did I put it? And yet, our metaphysical plight throughout life is to understand that I never have to go anywhere. Because whatever it is I need, whatever it is I think I want, I can take it by mentally taking it, accepting it, and allowing it to attract itself to me. But that doesn't mean that I stand still. It means I actually step into that process and do the work. How many of you are talented? Okay? Now, every one of you is talented. But some of you actually think you're talented. It's true, it's true. Everyone's talented, but some people think. Joanne, don't you think you're talented?
Yes, I do.
Did you hear that? That was a strong, powerful, yes, I do. I think I'm talented. I know I'm talented. How many of you know you're talented? Don't you know you're talented? Right, okay. Who doesn't know they're talented? Raise your hand, like you're really going to do that. So, okay. Now, I want to just read this quote. It's a great quote from Ruth Gordon. Do you all know Ruth Gordon? Yeah. Ruth Gordon, Harold and Maude. She was Maude. She's just an awesome actress. Here's her quote. It's not enough to have talent. One has to have talent for having talent. Think about that. Don't let that just go by. It's not enough just to have talent. One has to have talent for having talent. So my question to you today is, do you have the talent for having talent? Do you have what it takes to actually not only know you're talented, but cultivate it, woo it, have a relationship with it, and then allow it? Allow it out. Or do you sit back consistently judging yourself, dissing yourself? How many times have you heard your own mind be your own worst critic? How many times have you told yourself that something wasn't perfect exactly the way it was? Why, just in the car on the way over here. I was vocalizing for some odd reason, since I wasn't planning on singing today, but I was vocalizing, and Nora said, why are you doing that? You're not singing today. I said, I always like to vocalize just to get my voice in shape. And I was teaching her this exercise that I learned from a brilliant voice teacher, Paul Gavert, many, many years ago. He was like the big voice teacher in the 70s and the 80s. And I was doing this exercise, and I cracked. And I was like, well, that sucked. And Nora looked at me, and she went, why do you think that just because you cracked, it's wrong? I was like, unbelievable. And I wanted to tell her that in the car there is this cone of I do whatever I want. And I said to her, I said, no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And that's what I'm here to talk about today. This spark of creation, we douse it with judgment. We douse it with uncertainty. We douse it with fear and doubt. We douse it with, oh my God, the big one, comparison. Well, I'm not as good as Lori Donato as a singer. So if I'm not as good as Lori Donato, maybe I shouldn't really sing. Lori just put her head down. No, you stand in that. You are brilliant, and I love it when you chanteuse. It's a new verb, chanteuse, right? But there are many chanteuses in this room who may look at other people and then douse their own light, douse their own spark, as if what you have to offer might be less than what someone else had to offer, which is absolutely a spiritual impossibility. Who you are and what you have to offer this universe is sitting in that chair today just waiting for you to take a match and light it and ignite that spark of creation that you cannot douse. So is today the day? Is today the day you're ready? Are you ready today to actually light that fire and let it just create the biggest explosion inside of you that you have to come out of yourself and do what it is you're here to do? Yes, and, yes, right? And be who you're here to be? Yes. Right. I am here to be a sissy boy. But I'm here to express that and write it, and I'm having the time of my life, writing it and not judging it. I'm actually not judging my own writing. Unheard of. I'm like so far along, usually I'll write 10 pages, and a year later, I'm still fixing those 10 pages. Anybody else can, yeah, right? I'm not doing that. I'm just going, because I understand that there is something in me. This idea came to me, so I'm doing it. So what idea has come to you? I see a mountain and I want to climb it. I see a river and I want to leave shore. Where there was nothing, let there be something made by me. Something made by me. It is time for us to stop letting everyone else do what they do and not do what we are here to do. It is time to constantly to stop passing the buck and saying, well, they'll do that. That's not what I do. It is time for you and I to ask ourselves, what have I made of my talent? We were watching So You Think You Can Dance, and anybody watching this season? Oh my God, I just love it. I just love it. And I think I said this before. I had asked Nora, do you think I could still dance like that? And her answer was so quick to say yes. And we were watching it this week, and I said, I really need to take a dance class. I really want to get into a dance class. I really want to start doing that. I'm a great dancer. I really am an incredibly talented dancer. I was born a dancer. I just was. Marilee, weren't you born a dancer? You just born it. Yes, you go study, but you're born it. And there's something in me that just wants to dance again. And I got to tell you, and yet there's a conflicting message over here saying, you're going to break something. Seriously. I was like, and I even said to a choreographer friend of mine, I said, I want to have a piece choreographed on me, but I want to make it very clear what I can and cannot do. And my friend, he said to me, he was on the phone, he said, why would you start this out with limitations? Why would you start out saying you can and cannot do things? I said, well, I'm not planning on sliding across the floor and rolling on my back and jumping back up. And he said, why not? And I said, because I'll break something. And this conversation went on, and I can tell you by the end of it, I was like, you know what, you're right. Why do I think that just because I'm 58 years old, I will break something if I throw myself into this? But you know what? I still have that feeling. So until I get over that, I probably will. No, I'm not. I'm going to get over that. I'm going to get over that. I will break dance if it kills me. But that's what this is. There's things waiting for me. There's things waiting for me to invent them. There's worlds waiting for me to explore. And then this is my favorite line. I am an echo of the eternal cry of let there be. Everyone say that. Let there be. I am an echo of the eternal cry. I'm an echo because I am the eternal cry. There's the eternal cry, and it is working itself through me because that's who I am. And every time I say, let there be, just like I am, what comes after that is what shows up. So what have you been walking around saying, let there be me. There you go. Let there be Joanne O'Brien. Let there be. Now you got to look at your life because frankly, whatever's showing up in your life, you have said, let there be. Maybe it's let there be love. And you're having this magnificent, passionate, sexual, romantic relationship. And I said sex. Because sex is also part of God. Yes? Oh, I could split this room right down the middle. Say it again. Sex is part of God. If you're old enough to be having it. Let's just be clear about that. Yes. Lest my children be watching this. Not yet. So there's something inside of each and every one of us that is ready to say, let there be. So what are you saying let there be to? Let there be prosperity? Let there be success? Let there be opulence? Let there be opportunity in my life? Everybody want that? Yes. Let there be everything I need to accomplish exactly what it is I decide to accomplish? Yes? Yes. Let there be what? You get to decide that. You get to decide that. Do you know that you have the power to exclaim, let there be? Do you know you have a right to do that? Because that's a big part of this. Do you know you have the right, not only the right, but the responsibility to say, let there be, and then end it with something? The spark of creation is burning bright within me. The spark of creation won't let me rest at all. I love that line. I love sleeping. I do. I like my 8 hours of sleep at night. But I also love those nights when something happens. Like a few nights ago, I was working on Sissy Boy, and I'm sitting there writing it, and all of a sudden, it went from like 9 o'clock at night to 2 in the morning. I love those times. And it just takes you with it. And you're just going, and you're enjoying, and passion's coming out, and creativity's coming out. I didn't stand there and make that happen. I opened up to it, and it happened. So, won't let me rest at all until I discover or build or uncover a thing that I can call my celebration of the spark of creation. The spark of creation, may it burn forever. Well, here's the deal. It does. It burns forever. It will burn inside of you. It will burn inside of you until you actually ignite it. And then it will just continue not only to burn, but to literally take over everything around it. That's when we have the fire of heaven in us that Ernest Holmes talks about. We think all we want, I love this. We think all we want is a lifetime of leisure, each perfect day the same, an endless vacation. Someone asked me recently, what age do I think I would retire at? And I was like, retire? I said, I can't even fathom retiring. Now, here's the deal about retiring. I think people need to retire when they have something they are tired of that they need to away from. But when we have something that is so passionate to us that we love doing, I'm never going to retire from living. I'm never going to retire from letting that spark continue to burn through me. Leonard Bernstein didn't retire from composing. Stephen Sondheim hasn't retired from writing musicals. No one retires who knows that it's theirs to do. So I love this idea that Stephen says here, because then he says, such a sarcastic line, which I love. We think all we want is a lifetime of leisure, each perfect day the same, an endless vacation. Well, that's all right if you're some kind of crustacean. Because you got to rhyme vacation with something. Crustacean, vacation. That's pretty fabulous. Yes. So that's all right if you're some kind of crustacean. But when you're born with an imagination, sooner or later, you're feeling the fire get higher and higher, the spark of creation. Higher and higher and higher. How many of you today, Lynn Wask, how many of you feel that fire getting higher and higher and higher? Can you feel it? Dana? Yes, can you guys feel it? These four feel it. Can you feel that fire getting higher and higher and higher? I have to tell you, I knew coming in here today, I knew what I was going to talk about, but usually I spend more time preparing, and not really, but I spend more time thinking about it, but I just knew that this was going to just take me on this journey today. And it is. I feel so incredibly on fire today. I really do. Passionately on fire. And I've been working on this animal magnetism play that we're doing tonight, and it has been so fulfilling to watch these actors just step into this and start talking and speaking from the past of the life of Anton Mesmer. So exciting. And the man that wrote it, the man whose mind it came through, sitting there and knowing that he put every one of those words on that page, and now it's being spoken by Don, by all the other actors in the piece, by Rob. That's the spark of creation. It starts as nothing and then turns into something through you, through me. So I was going through my emails. How many people still have emails like from 2010 on their computer? 2007, there you go. Okay, so I decided I would go back, it was 2010, and get rid of 2010. I was like, really, if there's anything there I needed, I probably would have needed it by now. But because I'm not really okay with just throwing it all out, I read every one of them. Well, not all of them, but the ones that I thought there was something there. And I found one, sent to be by Marilee Blaisdell. She sent me this quote that I must have said in church on a Sunday, and it's my quote. And I read it, and I went, oh my God, it's like perfect what we're doing today. So here's what James Mellon said in 2010. If you wait for all of your ducks to line up in a row before you take your first step, they will fly away before you take your first step. Doesn't that sound like me? How many people here are still waiting for all of their ducks to line up in a row? How many? Guess what? They're never gonna. They really aren't. Because by the time the last one gets into place, the first one's bored. And finally, by the time the last one's in place, you're bored. I have always been the type of person to do it now. I have always been the type of person, I have an idea, I'm going to do it. Kevin, sometimes it drives him insane because I'll say, we're going to do this. He goes, you just thought of this yesterday. I know, and we're doing it. It's on the calendar, we're doing it. And that's how things get done in my house. So I want you to ask yourself, where in your life are you still waiting for the ducks to line up? Maybe you should just shoo them all away and start over and just do it, or do it now. Eric Butterworth said, you will always receive what you actually expect. Because a big part of this is expectancy. When you know who you are, you expect the best of everything. Or as Jerry Herman would say, the best of times. Steve Jobs, he wrote, have the courage to follow your heart and your intuition. They already know what you truly want to become. So, all of you in here that are still trying to figure out what it is you're meant to do, who it is you're meant to become, the reason why today's talk is where does it all come from is because if you really understand where it all comes from, you'll stop asking those questions and you'll start listening to the answers. Because the answers are inside of you. They're inside of me. What do I need to become? What's mine to do in this world? I can ask that question. It's a smart question to ask. But then I got to live the answer. I got to be willing to listen to the answer. I was kidding when I said, making a joke with Doug about whoever God is speaking, no matter who is talking. But I believe that. The universe is constant, as Ernest Holmes said, the universe is calling. And our job is to answer the call and not let it go to voicemail. Our job is to answer the call. But we have to know where that phone is, the metaphoric phone in our minds. Are you willing today to actively acknowledge, truthfully acknowledge that there is something inside of you, the spark of creation, that already knows everything you are ever going to need to know for the rest of your entire life and beyond? Are you willing to acknowledge that today? Great. Okay, so now that you've acknowledged that, are you willing to start trusting it? Are you willing to start being it, trust it, and really understand that what you need to know, who you need to be, is already what you are and already who you are? That's the absolute truth. It is time for you and I to literally spark, to literally ignite that spark inside of us. There is a spark inside of you. I feel it in the tips of my fingers. I feel it in the gut of my soul. I feel it in my mind. I feel it in my heart. I know it in my soul. I know it in my thinking. And there is no thinking, no contradictory thinking that can come along that I don't bombast out of my mind. Do not let that thinking that comes along to derail you lay there or sit there. Don't even acknowledge it other than to say, no, this is the truth. This is who I am. I love only. I forgive everything. I don't need to hold on to anything in my life. I forgive everything. And I know who I am, and I am so grateful, because when I am grateful, I am acknowledging that it all works perfectly, because there's a spark of creation. I know where it is, I know who it is, it's mine to ignite, and I ignite it now. Namaste. Okay.